All right. It is another video past my bedtime, but I've been getting a couple of questions that I've been giving the same response to. So at this point, I figured, what the heck? Might as well make a slide. So yeah, this is for Harvard. Harvard had new essays this year. They offer the 200 words each for uh, how life experiences that shape who you are today and able to contribute to Harvard. So what do you contribute? Intellectual experience that was important to you. Describe any extracurricular activity. How do you hope to use your Harvard education in the future? This is the one I want to talk about. And then the top 3 things your roommate might like to know about you. I realized that a lot of students are, in my opinion, I think they're misinterpreting the question to think that this is a why Harvard essay. So the way I see that playing out is when I read their initial drafts, they are talking very much about name drops of what they will do when they go to Harvard. I want to go to Harvard because they have Professor X and Professor Y, and they have institutions where I can learn to do this and do that. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, if that's all you say, I think you miss what I think is the most critical part of the question that distinguishes this from all other why college essays. And that's, how do you hope to use your education in the future? And I figured that I'd look at some of the guides that are out there, and I'm very happy with College Essay Advisors. So once again, kudos to College Essay Advisors. They point out that it's what I'm pointing to too, which is it should be about a talk about the future when I think it's after you graduate from Harvard. So admissions already knows a bit about what makes you you. Now they want to know why Harvard is the obvious next step in the trajectory of your life. Take some time to meditate on what you hope your life will look like after Harvard. After Harvard. Look at this. And they even put a dash. We're talking 10, 20 years in the future, boys and girls. Once you have an idea of what you hope for that person to be like, or do on an average day, invite admissions to senior vision data. Sorry, it's getting a little late. But anyways, kudos for you, College Essay Advisors. This is not a why Harvard essay. This is how do you hope to use your Harvard education in the future essay. Boom, boom. Oh, it's already bolded. Well, there you go. So I have a couple slides to figure, maybe this will help. I think I have a 3-step process here. Step 1, think of the future. This goes beyond just college. You're thinking about after you graduate, what are you going to do with your degree? So in that sense, you have to start thinking about after you graduate, what are your career goals? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to be a public servant? Are you trying to be an entrepreneur that changes things in Southeast Asia? What are your biggest dreams? What are your visions? Because you don't go to Harvard. Well, actually, I'm going to recuse myself there. But the reason why you want to go to Harvard in many regards is because you want to do big things. You want to make big changes. I think that's the aspiration for that. It's also to make your parents proud. I know. But put that aside for now. That's not going to help you for your essays, obviously. You should start thinking about who you admire and who you want to emulate. Like, if you really admired Winston Churchill, I consider him, like, I watched that, it was on Netflix. It was a movie of him. Man, he was a great leader. If you guys want to see like great leadership, maybe I'm biased and obviously the movie's going to make him look all great and stuff, but man, that was a great movie. I'm going off track. What are the problems you want to solve? What are the new frontiers you want to pioneer? I think students that I work with, one of the things that I try to help them build is this type of profile. The last 2 questions. I want to study this and I want to go to this college because ultimately I want to prepare myself to be someone who can help lead and solve these types of problems for my generation, for the world. I want to be the one who helps to devise and become the entrepreneur who helps create these new Plymouth Rocks on these new frontiers, create these new, I was watching I think it was a Lex Friedman, Jeff Bezos interview. If you haven't watched that, a lot of good IQ and EQ in that. It's a really good Common App personal statement, how to write that like smoothly, authentically. He grew up on a farm with his grandfather, who was like a fix it and figure it out kind of guy, and that's where he kind of got his intuitions. But in it, he talks about how he has a dream of creating these. I don't want to misphrase, but he was talking about how he wanted to help create these superstructures or something, just like how the internet was created. The internet itself created off of dial-up when it first started, telephone poles and whatnot. But now the internet allows for entrepreneurs in their dorm rooms to create multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies. So in the same vein, he wants to help create that next mega structure, that next platform. I'm going to have to go back to that podcast and find the right words. I'm sorry, guys. But step one, think about the future after you graduate. Step two, connect to Harvard. Connect your thoughts, your goals, your aspirations, your greater problems you want to solve, frontiers you want to pioneer to Harvard. So what does Harvard offer in terms of your post-college career opportunities? So after you graduate from Harvard, what does a Harvard degree do for you? Like, think about that. What are Harvard graduates known for? How do Harvard graduates inspire others? Where have Harvard graduates made the biggest impacts? So I wanted to show what I would research to figure out how I would connect my goals and my interests to Harvard. And so that's step three. You have to do research. I say this to my students all the time. I think the ratio for me has been 2 hours of good research equals 30 minutes of good writing. If you are struggling to write, I see this all the time when I'm meeting with students. Like, I ask them a question about their essays and they just sit there and they're like, they're thinking, as opposed to my other students who are much more, I guess, like productive and they bring more interesting ideas to the table. They're immediately going on to Google and they're searching things and they're trying to gather more data. Obviously, draw a fine line. You're not supposed to plagiarize. Yeah. Here's how I would do research. First, I'd go to the Harvard's page. So I'd go to Harvard and I would click on menu and I would click on about. Now, I'm not saying this is the only place you'll find the answer. It's just I've generally found a lot of good answers this way. You could look at the history of Harvard, but for me, it's these two at the bottom here. It's Harvard in the community. What impact do Harvard graduates make? Harvard in the world. What impact, what connection, what range, right? What types of aptitudes do Harvard people make? And so I'd be searching through here. Statewide impact, leading locally, and start finding some things. Obviously, don't rip too far or too obviously from this place. It's be inspired by these things. The next thing that I would look up are Harvard alumni and their achievements. So I just Googled it, Harvard alumni who've changed the world. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just searching and I'm trying to be inspired. I'm trying to understand, what do Harvard alumni do once they graduate? And these guys aren't necessarily the ones you have to follow, right? These are the ones who, you can do a synergy or a mixture of them, or you can be inspired by them, but take your own path. But the point is, do some research, figure out what the students who graduate from Harvard, what they've been able to achieve. And then also, this might be a little contentious, but honestly, I don't think it's contentious at all. It's here. It's the future. You got to use the tools that are in front of you. Use it ethically. With great power comes great responsibility. So I'd go on ChatGPT and I'd check some things out like this. What are Harvard graduates known for? They're known for intellectual excellence. Be careful about that. I think that could be a little egotistical really quickly. So there's a fine line you want to straddle there. They're known for leadership. I want to lead. I want to innovate. Hey, combine the two. I want to be a leader in innovation. I know that's not really like breaking any minds here, but still, public service, entrepreneurship, cultural impact, global perspective. And then I ask another one, what kind of desired future would make sense for me to go to Harvard? So this is where you have then the baselines of things like these categories. Then you have to flesh out and personalize for yourself. What are my career goals? What are the types of networks and connections that I need to have in order to realize the impact that I want to make? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Leadership, public service, entrepreneurial pursuits, prestige and recognition, that's another one of those where it could get very egotistical very quickly. So be careful. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. I should probably stop at this point. Yeah. It's not why Harvard. Okay, guys. It's how do you hope to use your Harvard education in the future? Merry Christmas. Good night.